What is up, YouTube? Filthy Casual is back. I've been out all day. This is take 2 of this video because I kind of rambled a really long time at the end of the old one, and I figured it would be better to do this as a Knicks versus Cavs matchup video. So, in my mind, the Knicks-Cavs matchup is one of, if not the most likely matchup for these two teams in the first round of the playoffs, given several factors, mostly given the remaining strength of schedule, which places 7 teams out of in the East in that top 11 strength of schedule, namely the 76ers, the Hawks, the Raptors, the Knicks, the Nets, the Bucks, and the Celtics. Those 7 teams are in the top 11 in various places. I think Knicks are ninth, Nets are 8th, Sixers are 1st, Hawks are 3rd, Raptors are 5th, Boston and Bucks are 10th and 11th. So, yeah, the Eastern standings could do a little thing, whatever that was. They could do a little thing, but for the most part, I think that the teams that are left, based on how I've seen them play and based on where they are in the standings, outside maybe the Sixers, Bucks, and Celtics mix up a little bit, but regardless, I think all of them are likely to win their first round matchup against whoever they end up playing, which in my mind it ends up being Boston, Bucks, Sixers, and they'd be playing the Boston would be playing either the Hawks, Wizards, or Raptors. Probably the Wizards or the Raptors. The Bucks would be playing the Nets. The Sixers would be playing the Heat, which could be an interesting matchup. Actually, I think that could be an interesting matchup. I think the Nets also will be not a rollover type of team if they remain and if they actually get into the playoffs, and that would leave the Cavs and the Knicks at 4 and 5, which, if you've been watching those teams play each other this season, is going to be a really interesting matchup. And I believe, with maybe just a little bit of bias, that the Knicks actually are the better of the two teams in a head to head. Now, I believe this for a couple of reasons, but we'll get into that shortly. Now, the Knicks and Cavs have played each other 3 times over the season. The next time they play each other is on March 31st. The 2 games that the Knicks have won out of the 3 were both very close matchups. One was a 2-point game. I think the other was a 5-point game. And the one time that the Knicks lost, they were missing Mitchell Robinson, who is our starting center and anchor of our defense. And it was a 14-point game, but it was a close game for most of the time. Now, let's look at some of the more specific numbers. In that blowout, the the Knicks were 10 for 27 on threes, and the Cavs were 23 for 50. And the Knicks shot 50% from the free throw line, while the Cavs shot 86%. Both on similar number of free throws, so it's not like there's some vast disparity there. Just the Knicks didn't hit their free throws, which, if you were watching the Knicks, especially early in the season, which this game was, the Knicks really struggled hitting their free throws, which is why we lead the league in overtime games. We have 9 games that went to overtime, and we pretty consistently lost games that we were leading in the fourth quarter. And we not only have we lost games due to poor free throw shooting, we also allowed games to go to overtime that we eventually lost. That being said, we've been much better recently with our free throws, and that is correlated into us going on a hot streak. And that's also in part due to Jalen Brunson being fantastic. But these little things throughout the season are good improvements. Now, the Knicks are 15th in defensive rating and 7th in overall in offensive rating, which is, hey, that's pretty good, right? Like, 7th in offensive rating is no joke, especially for a team that really struggled on offense just 2 seasons ago. And a large part of that is because Jalen Brunson's skill as a point guard and his ability to set his teammates up and handle the ball has not only made us more efficient, but also has allowed us to take the ball away from RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, who are both pretty not amazing ball handlers as far as their handle goes. and that also often led to turnovers or poor shots, and they were doing too much with the ball because we didn't really have any other options on the ball handling front, especially when Derrick Rose wasn't on the team, which is why that trade when we got Derrick Rose for our point guard made the team so much better in that fourth season. Derrick Rose isn't like that anymore, really, which is quite upsetting because, man, he was great that year, and he was, he really, beyond his MVP season, had a lot of great seasons that are very underrated. Not MVP caliber, but really quality production. And that offense that we have right now is pretty good, and part of that is due to our increased pace from previous seasons, but part of it is due to our half-court offense getting better. Now, what's far more concerning is our defensive rating. The defensive rating of the Knicks is currently 15th, and if you go into the clutch, our defensive rating is 25th in the league. We do not stop anything. But if you look at our pace, it is 9th. So how much of that defensive rating is us giving up easy points to run? I don't know. How much of that is not getting back on defense? I'm not sure. But our 25th rated clutch defense is definitely concerning. It is a concerning point in this matchup, especially because the Cavs have, players like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell who can really get you a lot of points in the playoffs and, set players up. Now, I've ragged enough on the Knicks' shitty defense, and 15th isn't terrible. But I think the inclusion of Josh Hart will make a vast improvement to that. But I'll get to that in a second. First, we're going to talk about the Cavs. So the Cavs are first in defensive rating. They are the best defensive team in the league in regulation. They just are. They are 10th in offensive rating, and that's also pretty good. They're top 10 in both defense and offense. That realistically makes them a contender, I think. I think that is not something crazy to say. I think they have one of the most talented starting fives in the league. That said, their depth is a little shaky, especially since there have been some injuries, namely Ricky Rubio. But that kind of shows itself in their clutch rating. They are 16th in defense and 15th in offense. And a large part of that slight drop-off, especially in the defense, I think, is probably because they're playing their guys a lot of minutes. And in the playoffs, that is not going to change. That being said, their offense being pretty middle of the pack is in large part due to their shooting woes. The Cavs are bottom 6 in three-point attempts and from 20 to 24 feet, and bottom 10 in their 20th. It's another way to say bottom 10. They are 20th in percentage. So they're not doing great on that. Granted, the Knicks are actually kind of a little bit the opposite. Our shooting is also nothing fantastic. We're pretty middle of the pack, but we do have an advantage in our ability to protect the paint, which is kind of wild because teams against the Knicks take a ton of threes. They are teams against the Knicks. Hold up, let me just make sure that I'm reading the right thing. Here we go. Teams take our top 3 in attempts, they're 3rd in attempts, and 2nd in makes, but 21st in percentage. So the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers are not great at shooting threes means that the Knicks can dare them to shoot as long as we are guarding, Donovan Mitchell, who's obviously a very good three-point shooter, and they can find themselves struggling to create consistent offense, especially down the stretch of close playoff games. And this is key because in the paint, the Knicks are one of the 3 best teams in the league at defending the paint. Like, people don't make shots. I think we're 29th in the league, or, flip it, however the number works. We're one of the 2 best teams in the league at shutting down paint offense that are within 5 feet and from 5 to 7 feet. So against a team like the Cavs that really want to get those easy buckets, that could be really, really frustrating for them in their way their offense is going to flow. And I think that's why the Knicks have won the majority of the games that we've played so far. And the game that we didn't have Mitchell Robinson, the anchor of our defense, we lost. I think that is very reasonable and it helps track. Now, I think the main concern on the defensive end for the Knicks is RJ Barrett and Jalen Brunson. Now, RJ Barrett was a great defender last year and the year before. For whatever reason, this year, he's terrible. He's the 9th percentile on points allowed. Teams score over 9 points better when he is on the floor. It's not good. It's not good. He's not played well so far this season. Now, that's not to say he doesn't have good numbers. He's averaging 19.7, 5, and 3 on 42%, 43% field goal percentage, just under 33% on three-pointers, and 75% on free throws, which is not fantastic. But there is good news. Traditionally, RJ Barrett scores better and plays better in the second half of seasons. He's done it pretty much every year of his career, which is why every year post All-Star break, all Knicks fans go, hey, RJ Barrett next year could be an All-Star. And then he comes in the next season and sucks. And then you're like, oh, shit, RJ is he's a good player, but he's not going to be that. And then the second half of the season, he turns up and you're like, holy shit, it's RJ Barrett, which is kind of wild, but, eventually maybe he'll get it. But as long as you can transition that improvement into the playoffs, I think that is something that the Knicks can count on as an additional offensive weapon and hopefully an additional defensive weapon. Now, that's a lot of mites. But the Knicks made a move during the trade deadline to help maybe mitigate his defensive woes. Josh Hart, who is a wing, just like RJ Barrett is, and while RJ Barrett is in the 9th percentile on defense, Josh Hart is in the 88th percentile. He's one of the better defenders in the league. Teams in the last 2 seasons have been over 5 points better his team has been over 5 points better on defense. Opposing teams have been 5 points worse on offense. And on offense for Josh Hart, he's been over 5 points better. His net rating in the past 2 seasons on the floor has been a +10, which is great. And I think Josh Hart's acquisition, in some games it might be Quentin Grimes instead of Josh Hart, or in some games it might be Josh Hart instead of Quentin Grimes. But down that stretch, if RJ Barrett is not on shit offensively all game and on defense he's a traffic cone, we can take him out and put Josh Hart in. And then suddenly we've got Quentin Grimes and Josh Hart, who are both very, very skilled defenders. And then we've got that backed up by Mitchell Robinson. And that is a tough ask to score consistently on. Tough. Not to mention, Emmanuel Quickley is a great defender as a backup. So if he's on a ringer that game and we need defense for a possession, we can put him in. And Jalen Brunson is also no slouch. He's one of the best guards at drawing charges this year. So it's not like Jalen Brunson is a completely useless player. Like, he forces turnovers. And that's great. That is the exact kind of thing that you need in a playoff series. And if you're doing it all season, you're going to see it in the playoffs, and it's going to frustrate some people. Now, the Cavs are obviously a very talented team, and I've talked a lot about the Knicks. The Cavs are still missing Ricky Rubio and Chetty Osman, which is some of their depth. They've been playing Dean Wade like 20-something minutes, which is obviously not ideal. They did also just acquire Danny Green in the trade deadline, which is something. Maybe he can give you some threes and help with that shooting, which is definitely something to consider. Personally, I'm not really that worried about Danny Green. I don't think Danny Green has been that good since that first year he was on the Lakers a couple years ago. I think that was really when the decline was like, okay, like, he's a vet now. He's probably not going to be giving you great minutes, or at least consistently. And it wasn't like he was terrible for the Lakers. He just wasn't consistent, and as evidenced by that meme photo, if everybody remembers that. But overall, I think Josh Hart's impact as a glue guy is going to help this team immensely. And I think that is going to give them possibly the kick up that they could use to outcompete the Cavs in the playoffs. Now, that being said, I think the Knicks could win, but it is a super close matchup. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them play on the 31st because I think it's going to tell us a lot about how both of these teams' seasons are going to go. And I'm also looking forward to how the East is going to play out because that's a lot of tough strength of schedule left for all of those Eastern Conference teams. And, you know, a couple of game swings here and there because they're all playing each other and they're all over 500 could really change the standings up. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for all the love on the previous video. Thank you to congratulating me on the UPenn waitlist. I just got rejected at UChicago, so meant a lot to get the the happy faces, the smiles, the hearts, and also leave a like, comment, because that really helps the video get seen by more people. And I am trying to grow this channel. I am trying to get this channel to get more subs, and I just like talking about basketball. So thank you so much for watching, and I will post again soon.